Hey, so good to see everybody again. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Unleash Your Life Force. I am your host, Dr. Natasha Nelson. Man, if you are an athlete or an entrepreneur or creative or mom, dad, you know, it's really about the dreamer who wants to achieve their dreams without compromising their health. Then this podcast is for you. If you're new to my podcast, welcome. I'm a chiropractor by trade and I have a master's in spiritual psychology. And I've been working with clients and patients for almost 30 years. I know. um, so, really, it's about taking the time and teaching about health and about how the body works and everything to empower you to be able to understand how your body works, to know what you can do to help with your healing journey. So today I am so thrilled because we are going to break down and talk about the knees, knee injuries, arthritis, everything from ACL sprains, strains, all the injuries and things that can happen to the knee. But my focus is going to be on the healing and the recovery part, and really how to energetically strengthen your knee so that one, ideally to prevent injuries, but as an additional layer when you're going through the therapeutic process and rehab, even if it's post-surgery, the things that you can do and the things that you can be responsible for to help the healing process. This is not intended to be instead of, but in addition to. So that's my disclaimer. um, so really the focus of this podcast and these next episodes is about the emotional and the spiritual meaning of physical dis-ease. And so today, as we break down the knee, I'm going to tie in the emotions of how arrogance, control issues, how it really, the things that we don't tend to connect or really understand, how it plays a role with the healing and strength of the knees. All right, so looking forward to this. I think about, well, before I do that, I like to talk about and highlight some of the most common phrases or sayings. Because when you think about somatic healing, they tie in, right? We say it, we think these things, but if you understand the meaning and where it comes from, it might also give you some guidance of what to look to. So, what comes to mind when I say, are you weak at the knees? It's the emotional weakness or of being in fear, in shock, and your knees shake. It could be an intense fear or traction, either way. And what about being on bended knee, which is the ability to show humility or pleading and asking for something in a serious way? We could be brought to our knees, and this could be in defeat or weaken someone else to the point of collapse. You can be knee deep in something. So being completely immersed in something, a task or situation, emotions, but you're knee deep in it. How about having a knee-jerk reaction, which is reacting on a subconscious level without any conscious thought or critical thinking or even a conscious awareness of what you are saying or doing? It's just a reaction. How about to bend the knee? Yes, I'm a Game of Thrones fan, so this comes up. But to bend the knee is to admit submission to someone of power. It's also can be a form of protest to bend the knee. You can, and what would be the last one here? To fall on one's knee, which is really kneeling. Could be in prayer. It could be to show reverence. It can be out of respect or in awe. And I'll break those down a little bit more for you, but I want you to think about some of those catchphrases and some of those terms and think about how they came to be. What's the meaning below the surface? I think back to my own experience with my knees. It was actually MLK Day 2016. It's a very specific date because it was that not even empowering, but very intense kind of day for me. So it was a holiday and I was out playing volleyball and I was on the beach and there are four of us playing doubles. And I remember I went to turn and I heard and felt the pop. The pop. If you know anything about knees, there's nothing more terrifying than to hear that pop. And the terror. So my friends carried me back to my apartment, which had to hobble up the stairs. And I remember just being overcome with the sense of terror. The fear that I cannot walk, which for me as a chiropractor also means I can't work. I can work in speaking, but I couldn't actually physically adjust and work. And I remember after, I called up on, my friend who's a doctor and making sure really the physical, what was going on. Once he assured me it wasn't the dreaded, Achilles or ACL and MCL and meniscus terrible triad. My knee was swollen and it was really difficult for me to walk. So what I could do was sit. I was forced to sit, forced to stop, forced to pause, which for me is the worst thing to do and the hardest thing to do, not because I don't like resting, but I don't like being forced to. But really in that time, so probably 3-4 days into it, my knee was still swollen. I was still hobbling around the house, because I could barely climb up the stairs and go down the stairs. And during that time, what I was really starting to think about was it was such a pivotal time in my life where I was in need of making big decisions. And I kind of didn't want to have to. I didn't really want to look at it. And I did not welcome the time, the quiet time, the downtime. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. But what it did was it forced me to look at my life with honesty. I had to acknowledge what was no longer working in my life, what was no longer serving me in the direction that I wanted to go. And I want you to think about that because, yes, it could be a person, but for me, it really was a belief. It was a mindset. It was a limiting belief in my operating system, how I operated to survive, to function, to live. It's what I knew how to do, and I knew it needed to change. I just didn't know how to change it. But if I was really honest, I also didn't want to change it. And what I realized during this time, it took about 3 weeks for the swelling to go down, where I could walk comfortably enough and work out again, not play volleyball, but work out. was that my soul was forcing me, getting me to listen, getting me to pay attention, to find a different direction to go in. So I want you to think about the knee, the structure of the knee. And I'll go into a little bit more about what it means emotionally. So the basic anatomy, you got 4 bones in the knees, 12 ligaments and tendons, and that includes the meniscus. You have 2 calf muscles and 4 parts of the thigh, the front of the thigh, which is the quadricep muscle, which is one big muscle group, but quad meaning 4, there are 4 parts to that quad. There's also the IT band that connects the hips to the knee, the sartorius, the gracilis. I'm actually going to do, the next episode is really going to focus more on the leg as a whole, because there was so much information. I wanted to just focus on the knee for today. And, as a chiropractor, when I look at, the body, when people come in to see me with low back pain, hip pain, even headaches, you'd be surprised. The first thing that I do in my evaluation is have people walk, because how you walk, your gait, the movement of your legs is dependent on your knees as well as your feet, but the knees. So I look to that because it tells me a lot about what's adapting, what's compensating, how the muscles and the energy move up the spine into the shoulders and the head as well. So as I say this, I want you to just take a moment to start to think about, what is it that your soul is trying to get your attention to pay attention to? Your soul's talking to you. If you are experiencing knee pain or weakness or an injuries that just, seem to come out of nowhere, or repetitive injuries that don't seem to heal properly, there's something going on. And that something means that the energy in the knee is compromised. Yes, it's compromised physically, could also be compromised nutritionally. But I want to talk about the areas where your knee is compromised emotionally. So let's dissect some of the phrases and themes to see if this can all come together and make sense. So think about what the knee does. The knee propels you forward. The legs move forward or they move backwards. They even go side to side. So the knees are about movement. So think about from a perspective of, if you are not moving in the direction that you should be going, should be moving, or a direction that you are forcing yourself to go in, even though it's not the direction you want to be in. Maybe you are moving in a direction that you feel you should be doing or obligated to do, but maybe the actions and the movements and the direction that you are going are not in alignment with your soul's purpose, not in alignment with who you are, or in alignment of where you want to go and the dreams that you want to achieve. So oftentimes the knee can represent where you are going, but you don't want to go. It could be where you are trying to go out of the belief that you should be there. And it could be, sometimes it could be wanting to be somewhere else other than where you are. It could be physically, psychologically. If you feel like you want to be somewhere else other than where you are, it's as if you're trying to run away. You're trying to leave and run away and go somewhere other than being where you are. I smile as I say this because this is what tied into my injury and what my soul was trying to get me to do and pay attention to. So I want you to think about some of the emotions that are tied to the knee. It could be humility. Think about kneeling in prayer. The kneeling is showing humility and surrender to something bigger. The lack of humility is ungrateful. Being ungrateful for what is happening, being ungrateful for what is present. The emotions in the knee can also be arrogance. You are so arrogant that you are unwilling to surrender, unwilling to acknowledge something bigger. Also relates to entitlement, that your way is better than God's way or the bigger way of the universe. Some of the smaller emotions can be disrespect and self-doubt, feeling uncertain, being humbled, pride, even clumsy, being a go-getter. So of all the different emotions, I want to break down a few, specifically arrogance and entitlement. They're slightly different, but they relate, so I'm going to lump them together as one. And really, it's about the belief that life should be different than the way it actually is. The belief that you get to control everything in your life, but even more so that you can control the universe, the laws of nature, the way life operates. It's the arrogance is the belief that you are in charge of it, you are in control of it, and that you know better. Now, this can be regarding other people. When you don't like how others are, and you think your way, your beliefs, your operating system, that your thoughts are better, meaning superior to, or more valuable, or more important than someone else's. That's the arrogance, the emotion, and then the entitlement of the actions that you take based on the arrogance that you feel. From a soul's perspective, that arrogance and entitlement, the injury can be your soul's way of saying, hey, your belief and your perspective is not better than God's or the universe, and I need you to see that. It's like your soul is saying, I'm going to slow you down and force you to look at how you are operating. I'm going to force you to look at the beliefs below the surface in order for you to evaluate them, re-examine them, and possibly fine-tune and change them. Your soul using your knee to get your attention can be that you think that your way is the right way, that your way is the only way, and that your way is the way that it should be. And then expecting other people or even the universe really to accommodate you and the way you think things should be, instead of being able to look at the way things actually are. And that's as we go deeper, kind of where the lesson is which ties into the next emotion I want to talk about, which is surrender. Because there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about what surrender actually is. Surrender is not a weakness. Surrender is not giving up. It's not just resigning and just saying F it and just rolling over and giving everything up. Surrender is not the resignation. It's not hopeless. Surrender is consciously choosing and having the willingness to look at what is, like what actually is going on in the current and present time. And it's being honest, taking an honest account of what's actually going on. It's being able to see the reality of what's happening in your life in this moment, in current time, and looking at it and evaluating it for how it is. And there's a moment where it's not trying to change it or get rid of it or hurry up and get to the other side and through it. And it's not trying to force it away and push it aside. There's a moment where it's just being still enough and slowing down and actually looking. But it's really looking with all your senses. So you're looking at what's going on. You're evaluating what you are feeling. You're taking inventory of what's around, what's happening. The surrender is the willingness to face the truth, because ultimately you know that there's something you don't want to see, you don't want to look at, or you don't want to acknowledge. Surrender is the willingness, and part of looking at the information, it's taking responsibility for your role, whether it's the situation that you're in, the circumstances that you're in, whatever is happening. It's not about, oh, you're at fault and you're the blame and you're the one, the cause. It's not that. It's the willingness to evaluate your role. Because oftentimes the role is the limiting belief that you did not know has been operating below the surface or behind the scenes, that you didn't know was a factor. So this isn't to blame. Your soul is saying, hey, I want you to look here. Look at the limiting belief that may have served you and may have been helpful for you, but you cannot continue this way. It's not going to take you where you want to go. And it's time to release a limiting belief or change it or transform it or evolve it, whatever it is that you do when you start to see that one of your beliefs is no longer going to work. So for me, during that time when I had plenty of time to sit and evaluate my life and what was going on with my knee, there was a lot. I knew things, it was obviously MLK Day, so it was a January and it was the new year. And I knew things were changing with my business, with being a business owner. I was so burned out and I was so tired. But I didn't know how to stop. I didn't really know how to change. Didn't know how to let it go, because it's all I'd known my whole life since I was 14 was work, 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 go, go. Just do more, do more, do more. And I knew I was burned out. I just didn't know how to make changes, because like financially didn't make sense. And it wasn't easy. And I didn't really know what to do. So I just kept doing what I knew how to do, which was work, because I didn't know how to change anything. And my soul was saying, well, I'll help you by giving you some time off, not as punishment, but as a reprieve, to give me time to hear, to listen, to even come up with some ideas and a plan of how to create some change. Because what I knew for sure as I started after those 3 weeks was I loved my work. I've loved my work. I love the work that I do. But life felt so overwhelming and exhausting as a single mom. My daughter at the time was, little. And I just wanted to feel safe and secure and in control, which was doing the same thing that I had always done, which is you work more, you work harder, go, go, go. Because that's what had worked for me through high school, through college. It served me well and it did good for me. But I was getting to the time where I needed to do it differently. I needed to do life differently. And that was scary as heck. Oh my gosh, so scary that I was like, I don't want to look at it. La, 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 la. Part of what the 3-week reprieve was, I knew my life needed to change. And I knew I wanted it to change. And I also knew but I didn't want it to change because it was familiar. I had all the days planned every day in the week. I knew what to do. I knew how to do it. It was familiar. It felt stable, but I knew that my health was compromised. And so those 3 weeks was the part 1, because, I was a little bit stubborn. So I did some changes, but not all the changes. And I'll share more on different episodes about how my soul was like, all right, well, you didn't want to listen to part 1. So my soul gave me part 2. So here are some of the skills that I want you to think about. And yes, it applies to the knee, but it can apply, at any time. The message that your soul is trying to get you to pay attention to. How to take deliberate inaction. Because if you're like me, the idea of taking a pause, taking a break, and stopping just seems so like, no, I don't want to do that. But if you take deliberate inaction and force yourself to have an off season, allow yourself to have an intentional pause. A pause could be a day, could be a week, could be as long as you need to give yourself quiet, to really connect with your soul, with your heart, and really connect. You'll find that there's information there you've been overlooking or just didn't know how to really interpret and understand it. One of the skills, though, at the deeper level is part of the pause is learning how to evaluate where you are. It's not judging where you are, it's evaluating it. Just taking in the information. What's working, what's not working, what can you slightly modify and change, what needs to be scrapped out and redone or start over. So it's reevaluating the direction that you're going in. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we're working on and working towards that we forget why we're going that direction. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing the thing that we think we're supposed to do? Sometimes it's about reevaluating the purpose, the intention, and the why you are moving in a specific direction. When it comes to the knees, think about the whole point of why kneeling in prayer is kneeling to surrender to something bigger, something greater than ourselves. You can call it God, call it universe, call it nature, whatever you want, doesn't matter. But the whole point of prayer is being able to ask for help, which means acknowledging your humanness, acknowledging what's not working, acknowledging where you need help. That's part of the prayer, because part 2 is also being able to receive the help, being able to receive help. Be amazed at how challenging that can be for some to actually receive help, to acknowledge that something's not working, and to be able to receive without feeling guilt, without feeling shame or embarrassment or humiliation, to allow someone to help you. So that's what I want you to think about. If you are experiencing knee pain, problems, issues in your knees, that whether it's an injury, arthritis, stiffness and swelling, or they just don't move as well as it should. Think about the knees. Think about where is it that you may feel to like a sense of pride that you don't want help, or arrogance that you don't think you need help, or entitled that it should just be the way you want it, how you want it, and everybody and everything should comply and bend to your will. These are all just the emotions and the spiritual meaning of the knee that I just want you to think about and feel into what resonates with you. So that's a lot on the knee, which is why like I said, the next episodes will be on the hips and the legs, because it was too much for one episode. So that's what today, and the knee and needing to be in control, a lot to explore there. So I'd love to hear from you. I want to know your thoughts, what resonated with you, how this was helpful for you. And then we'll continue on our future episodes of the other parts of the body too. So that's it for today. I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments. I read them and I appreciate them. And I think it's important to always just recognize that there's always hope, because there's energy moving. And so there's always something that you can do to help your body heal and recover and have more energy. So, I always like to say, remember to feel your feelings, or your body will feel them for you. So I'm going to leave you with that. I'm Dr. Natasha Nelson here on the Unleash Your Life Force podcast, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.